Avoidant behavior is not rejection, it's protection. That's the first truth most people never see when they're caught in the emotional confusion of dating someone avoidant. Because when an avoidant person starts to pull away, your brain immediately screams, "I did something wrong." You start to overanalyze every text, every tone, every silence. But what if that distance wasn't actually about you at all? What if it was about their emotional wiring, not your worth? Avoidant people often learned early in life that closeness equals danger. Maybe growing up, vulnerability led to pain, inconsistency, or disappointment. So as adults, they developed an unconscious reflex. When intimacy deepens, when emotions rise, their system sounds an alarm. Jet out. You're not safe. It's not that they don't feel, it's that they feel too much, too fast, and their body reacts with withdrawal instead of openness. Their silence, their cool detachment, their "I just need space" line, it's not an insult to your value. It's a shield protecting them from the vulnerability they never learned to trust. Here's where most people get trapped. You start interpreting that avoidance as rejection. You start chasing it, trying to prove you're worthy of staying. You text more, you check in, you try to fix the distance. But to the avoidant, that pursuit feels like pressure. They don't register your love as safety. They register it as intensity. The more you try to close the gap, the more they retreat, and the dynamic spirals into anxiety on one side and fear on the other. The key to breaking this cycle is understanding the emotional engine driving it. Avoidant people are not cold, they are conditioned. They crave connection, but the moment they get close enough to touch it, their nervous system panics. Imagine someone standing too close to a flame. They love the warmth, but the heat reminds them of getting burned. So they step back, not because they hate the fire, but because they're terrified of the pain that might come next. When you finally understand that their distance isn't a verdict on your desirability, but a reflection of their emotional safety system, everything changes. You stop internalizing their avoidance as failure. You stop chasing, over-explaining, or trying to prove you're different. You begin to respond from clarity, not fear. You might still care deeply, but you care from a grounded place, not a desperate one. That's when your energy shifts. You start to speak differently. Instead of saying, "Why are you pulling away?" you say, "I notice you need space right now, and that's okay." You stop trying to fix them and start protecting your peace. And paradoxically, that's when the avoidant person starts to notice, because your calm presence communicates something their system rarely experiences: safety without control. This doesn't mean you tolerate inconsistency or emotional distance forever. It means you understand that the story isn't rejection, it's fear. And fear can't be argued with, it can only be met with stability. When you stop making their behavior about you, you break the invisible bond that keeps you both stuck in the same emotional loop. You stop being the pursuer, and you become the anchor. And here's the beautiful twist. When someone avoidant finally meets a person who doesn't personalize their protection mechanisms, their internal wiring starts to shift. They begin to realize, maybe closeness isn't dangerous. Maybe this time I can stay. It's not your job to heal them, but your understanding creates an environment where healing becomes possible, without you losing yourself in the process. So the next time an avoidant pulls back, don't rush to fill the silence. Let the space speak. Because what feels like rejection in the moment is often someone's deepest attempt to feel safe. And when you understand that, you stop chasing their approval and start leading with empathy, confidence, and self-respect, the qualities that not only protect your heart, but redefine what real connection feels like. You know, the most fascinating moment in any relationship, it's not when someone finally texts you back. It's not when they say, "I miss you." The real moment of power, the true shift, happens when you stop chasing. When you stop trying to convince someone to see your value. Because that's the second everything changes. At first, chasing feels natural. You care about someone, they pull away, and instinctively you lean in. You send another message, you try to explain yourself, you try to fix what feels broken. You think if you can just find the right words, the right tone, the right timing, you can make them see how much potential there is between you. But here's the truth. The more you chase, the more you confirm to them that they hold the power. Avoidants by nature thrive in distance. It's their comfort zone. When you move toward them, they instinctively move away, not because they don't care, but because closeness feels unsafe. It triggers the part of them that equates intimacy with vulnerability and vulnerability with pain. Every time you chase, you unknowingly reinforce their pattern. You tell them, "I'll keep closing the gap, no matter how far you run." That's what keeps the cycle alive. But when you stop chasing, something far deeper happens. Something psychological, something emotional. Suddenly, you're no longer participating in their avoidance loop. You've taken your energy back. And that energy, that shift from desperation to composure, is magnetic. It's not about playing games or pretending you don't care. It's about genuinely stepping into your self-worth and realizing you don't have to earn love through pursuit. When you stop chasing, the silence that follows is powerful. It's not cold, it's calm. It's self-assured. And that calm is unnerving to an avoidant. They've become accustomed to being the one in control of emotional distance. But when you don't react, when you don't try to fix, when you simply stay grounded and emotionally neutral, you disrupt their pattern. They start to feel something they weren't expecting, uncertainty. They begin to question what happened. Why aren't they reaching out? Why aren't they trying to fix this like before? That curiosity quickly turns into reflection, because suddenly, they're no longer being pursued, they're being left with their own behavior. And for someone who hides behind distance, that's uncomfortable. That's when the cracks begin to show. The reason this works isn't manipulation, it's alignment. You're no longer operating from fear, you're operating from clarity. When you stop chasing, you communicate, without words, that you are capable of connection, but not at the cost of your peace. You show that your emotional stability doesn't depend on their approval. That kind of presence is powerful. It's the kind of strength that doesn't shout, it radiates. Avoidants often confuse intensity for intimacy. When you chase them, it feels like pressure. When you stop, it feels like space. And that's when they start to notice the absence of your energy. They start to realize that you weren't the problem, their fear was. They begin to understand that distance isn't safety, it's isolation. And once they feel that contrast, they can't unfeel it. The beauty of not chasing is that it redefines the entire dynamic. You're no longer reacting to their behavior, you're responding from self-awareness. You become the anchor in a storm they created. And that quiet strength, that refusal to chase chaos, creates the kind of attraction that lasts, because people are drawn to those who don't need validation to know their value. So yes, the power truly shifts when you stop chasing. Not because you made them miss you, but because you finally remembered yourself. You stopped fighting for someone who wasn't fighting back. You stopped auditioning for a role in someone else's comfort zone. And the moment you did, everything about the connection transformed. The avoidant begins to crumble not out of guilt, but because, for the first time, they see what real emotional strength looks like. And they realize they might just lose it. You know what truly turns people's heads, not just for a moment, but in a way that makes them stop and think about you long after you've gone. It's not your looks. It's not your charm. It's not even how kind or caring you are. It's your emotional independence. That quiet, unshakable calm you carry when someone else tries to test your worth and you don't flinch. Because here's the truth. Nothing is more magnetic than a person who doesn't need your validation, but chooses to share their peace with you anyway. When you deal with someone avoidant, emotional independence is the difference between being trapped in their emotional storm and standing above it. Avoidants thrive in dynamics where the other person becomes reactive. The moment you start chasing, explaining, over-texting, or trying to prove your value, they feel safe again, because they've regained control. They pull away, and you come forward. That dance becomes predictable, and predictability feeds their avoidance. But when you stay still, when you don't chase, when you breathe through the silence instead of filling it, that's when the entire pattern breaks. They're not used to that. They're not used to someone who can hold space for their distance without collapsing inside it. Emotional independence doesn't mean being cold or detached. It means being anchored. It means your peace isn't negotiable, even if their attention is. When you stop tying your sense of worth to their behavior, you begin to glow differently. You walk into conversations without the heavy need to be liked or validated. You start listening not to fix, but to understand. And that shift is electric. Avoidants, who are often used to emotional chaos or control, suddenly meet something they can't define. You're calm. That calm unnerves them. It disarms them. Because for the first time, they're looking at someone who's not participating in their emotional pattern. The irony is, emotional independence creates attraction precisely because it creates contrast. In a world full of people desperate to be chosen, you're the one who already chose yourself. You radiate stability. You respond instead of react. You communicate instead of complain. And you set boundaries, not as punishment, but as self-respect. Avoidants feel that difference immediately. They may not understand it, but they sense it. And here's the fascinating thing: when an avoidant senses emotional stability, part of them starts to trust. They begin to realize that intimacy doesn't have to mean losing themselves. Your calm presence becomes a mirror that reflects their fears back to them, but it also shows them what safety can look like. But let's be honest, reaching this level of independence isn't about pretending not to care. It's about learning how to regulate your emotions when someone else cannot regulate theirs. It's the quiet confidence of saying, I can care about you deeply, but I won't lose myself trying to keep you. It's understanding that silence is not rejection, it's information. It tells you where someone is in their emotional journey, and it tells you how you should show up for yourself. The more emotionally independent you become, the less you need to chase clarity, because confusion no longer shakes you. You trust your own perception. You trust your ability to walk away if peace costs too much. And here's the hook most people miss. The moment you stop needing someone's closeness to feel secure, they start craving yours. It's not manipulation, it's energy. People are drawn to grounded energy because it offers what they secretly crave: safety. When you embody emotional independence, you send a silent message that says, I'm not afraid of losing you because I already have me. And that message, that's irresistible. It's what makes avoidants start questioning their own distance. It's what makes them start showing up differently. Not because you demanded it, but because your calm required it. So when you think of attraction, don't just think of chemistry, conversation, or shared interests. Think of emotional independence as your strongest signal. It's the quiet confidence that tells the world, I am my own peace. And when you carry that energy, you don't chase connection anymore, you attract it effortlessly.